Deck builds, DDD Fiendsmith. How's it going, guys? This is DDDreamer here, long time no see. In my absence, a lot has changed. The meta has shifted, new sets were released, and more importantly, everyone runs Fiendsmith now. So in this video, I will show you how we can use Fiendsmith with our corporate demons. First off, let's talk about the reprint. So Konami decided to end the 25th anniversary with a bang by casually reprinting Engraver and Desirae. And because of that, Engraver is now dirt cheap on card market. With only €2 per copy and 50 cents per copy for Desirae, surely everyone's gonna pick it up, right? Right, Konami? Right? I mean, it would be a pity if you wouldn't reprint Requiem or Lacrima or Tract in the same set, right? Right? Oh my, I guess there goes the budget then. Okay, anyways, let's assume you guys already have these cards. Or you just want to play them online first. Well, in that case, I've prepared two builds for you. The first build only requires a minimal Fiendsmith engine, and the second one goes all out and even incorporates the new support in the upcoming Battles of Legend Monster Mayhem set. So without further ado, let's get into it. First off, let's examine Fiendsmith Engraver. Engraver is the bread and butter of the Fiendsmith engine. You always start by discarding him to search for a Fiendsmith spell or trap. Our targets are either Sanct or Tract, more on them later. The Fiendsmith engine is notorious for generating easy level 6 Fiend bodies without even using a normal summon. And the Fiendsmith line typically ends on Desirae or our wave High King Caesar. And in both cases we are already way past the 5th summon, which means the opponent is threatened to throw the nib early rather than late, because they don't want to deal with all that, which in turn means that the Fiendsmith lines are very good to bait out hand traps. Okay, now let's take a look at the first variant, the minimum Fiendsmith variant. The deck idea is the following. First, our usual DDD game plan persists. That means our standard DDD lines are still there, or they are expanded. The Fiendsmith engine itself is used as the consistency booster and a hand trap bait, because in this version we're gonna play two wave High King Caesars. And since we have a spare one in the extra deck, we can use the other one actually to search for other contracts. I know, that's an insane thought, but it's pretty awesome if you see the combos. And lastly, sometimes we can end on two wave High King Caesars. Now let's talk about the deck space. This minimum variant requires 4 main deck slots, being 3 Engravers and 1 Sanct, and 2 extra deck slots, being 1 Requiem and 1 additional wave High King Caesar, as I said. And this begs the question, how we should cut our deck. In the most widespread versions, 1 Gilgamesh has been cut, and here it comes, 2 Swirl Slime. Yes, you've heard me right, we only play 1 now. Even though our Swirly Boy was the #1 hand trap bait back then in our pure engine. Talking about power creep. Swirl, I'm sorry. I just don't believe it works out anymore. It's not you, it's me. The meta just changed, and Engraver just does a better job in the current format, so I guess this is goodbye. Thanks for everything. Damn it, Engraver, look what you made me do! At least the payoff justifies it, because as you can see, the main Fiendsmith line in variant 1 is super simple. We're gonna start off by discarding Engraver so that we can add Sanct. By activating Sanct, we can special out a Fiendsmith token. Here we have to be careful. We can't activate Sanct when we don't have an empty field or something else than light fiends on the field. Which is why you always have to make sure to start off with the Fiendsmith lines first, if your DD lines require body to start off the combo. Okay, after the token is special, we can now special out Requiem. Requiem can tag itself out so that it can special out another copy of Engraver from the deck. The first Engraver that you have discarded from the graveyard can then shuffle back a light fiend, in this case Requiem, to special itself out from the grave. And with that you have 2 level 6 light fiends which can be overlaid into wave High King Caesar. And that's it, that's the only land that we're using for variant 1. This is an example deck I'm using for the first variant. As you can see, the only real brick scales that we have are Ragnar and Thomas. Anything else is pretty streamlined, but in this variant I've cut out the possibility of having a 1-card gate combo, since I only have 2 Gilgas. You could increase it, but that means that you have to cut out Chaos Angel or Zeus from the extra deck, or a big Genghis, depending on how you want to play it. You could argue that you don't need the second Orthros, which might be true, but in my matchups I came in need of having a searchable MST with gate, so you could really cut it if you want to. So now let's see how it would look like in our combos. We're gonna start off with Lamia Engraver. Discard Engraver to act Sanct. Now activate Sanct to special out the token so that we can go into Requiem, Requiem effect, specialing out the second Engraver. Activate the first Engraver's graveyard effect so that it specials itself out. Now we go into our Big Caesar, normal summon Lamia to link both of them to Gilga. Chainlink 1, search contract, chainlink 2 Gilga. Gilga scales Gryphon and Thomas, and we grab ourselves a gate. Gate effect, get Copper. Pend out Copper and Foolish Necro. Gryphon effect to pop itself so that we can get it back with Thomas. Special out Gryphon to go into our small Caesar. Now activate Lamia so that we can tap our Caesar. Caesar effect, get a Swamp. Necro effect, go into our first small Genghis. We overlay into Machinax so that we can trigger our Reborn for Gryphon. Gryphon now grabs us Headhunt. With Swamp, we go into our second small Genghis. We overlay into a second Big Caesar and set Headhunt. And as you can see, with only Lamia, we can go almost full combo. The same goes for Necro. We're gonna do the same Fiendsmith line again. Just keep in mind that you can't activate Sanct when you already have a DD on field. Because Sanct only specials out the token when you don't have any monster on the field or only light fiends. Okay, now we're gonna normal Necro and link into Gilga. Chaining 1 Caesar to search, chaining 2 Gilga to scale Gryphon and Thomas. Caesar grabs Gate again, Gate grabs Copper. We're gonna pend out Copper, this time we Foolish Swirl. Now we're gonna pop Gryphon to get it back with Thomas. Gryphon specials itself and we go into Caesar. Gonna dump Caesar with the second Gilga. Caesar will grab a Swamp. With Necro we go into our first small Genghis. We overlay into Machinax so that we can revive our Gryphon. Gryphon now grabs us Orthros. We banish Swirl from grave so that we can special Orthros. We go into a Siegfried. And with Swamp we go into our second small Genghis and we overlay into Big Caesar. And this is almost full combo again. The same thing can be done with Swirl as well. And as you have noticed, once you master the Fiendsmith line, it's always going to be the same procedure. So I'm gonna spare you the details this time. Okay, now we normal summon Swirl and we go into our Gilga again. Same thing as before, we go chaining 1 Caesar, chaining 2 Gilga. We grab us Gate, Gate grabs us Copper. I'm gonna pend out Copper, Copper with Foolish Necro. We're gonna pop Gryphon to add it back with Thomas. Gryphon specials itself, we go into our small Caesar. Then we're gonna dump with our second Gilga so that we can grab our Swamp King. We go into our first small Genghis. Overlay into a Machinax so that we can revive our Gryphon. Gryphon will add us Orthros. We special Orthros with Swirl. Go into our Siegfried. Go into our second small Genghis and overlay into our Big Caesar. So with the Fiendsmith engine, we always go into almost full combo, even with these one-offs. Now let's look into the Gate 2-card combo. As usual, the Fiendsmith line will always be the same. Okay, with Gate, we're gonna grab us our Copper. We're gonna normal summon Copper so that we can Foolish our Necro. And we're gonna link both of them to Gilga. Caesar chainlink 1, Gilga chainlink 2. Gilga scales Gryphon Thomas again, but this time we grab also our Swamp King. We're gonna pend out Copper. Pop Gryphon again so that we can add it back with Thomas so that we can special it. We go into our small Caesar. Now we go into our Tell, and we burn our opponent. We go into our first small Genghis with Swamp King, with Tell and Copper. Tell now Foolish as Swirl. We overlay into Machinax so that we can revive our Gryphon from the grave. Gryphon grabs us Orthros. With Swirl we go into special out Orthros so that we go into our Siegfried. With Necro we go into our second small Genghis and then we overlay into our Big Caesar. The same thing can be achieved with Kepler as well. We're gonna play the Fiendsmith part again up until the part where we have Big Caesar on the field. We're gonna start off by normal summoning Kepler. Kepler will get us Gate. We're gonna link them into Gilga again, chaining 1 Caesar, chaining 2 Gilga. Gilga will scale Gryphon and Thomas again, and Caesar gets a Swamp. With Gate, we're gonna get Copper. We're gonna pend out Copper so that we can Foolish our Necro. We're gonna pop Gryphon so that we can add it back with Thomas. We special Gryphon so that we can go into our small Caesar and then into our Tell. We're gonna burn our opponent by detaching Copper. With Swamp, we go into our first small Genghis. Tell will now Foolish Swirl. We're gonna overlay into Machinax so that we can revive our Gryphon. Gryphon will add us Orthros. With Swirl, we're gonna special out Orthros. Both will go into Siegfried. And with Necro, we go into a second small Genghis and overlay into Big Caesar. As you can see, the Savant lines are more resourceful, but we still miss Headhunt. And that can be achieved with the following 2 combos. Believe it or not, now Orthros Engraver is full combo. Okay, now after the Fiendsmith cinematic is done, we're gonna normal our Orthros and link into Gilga. Chaining 1 Caesar, chaining 2 Gilga. Gilga sets Gryphon and Thomas again, and we grab ourselves a gate. Gate's effect, we grab us Copper. We're gonna pen summon out both Orthros and Copper. Copper will flourish Necro. Now we're gonna pop Gryphon so that we can add it back with Thomas. Gryphon specials itself and we go into our small Caesar. Then we dump him with our second Gilga. Caesar will grab a Swamp. With Necro we go into our first small Genghis. We overlay into a Machinex so that we can revive our Gryphon with Genghis. And this time Gryphon grabs us Headhunt. Then we go into our Siegfried. With Swamp we go into our second small Genghis. We overlay into our big Caesar and then we set Headhunt. Imagine hard drawing Orthros and still going full combo. The same can be achieved with Copper. As usual, we're gonna do the full Fiendsmith cinematic, so lean back and enjoy. Okay, now we're gonna normal summon Copper. Copper will flourish Necro. We link into Gilga, chainlink 1 Caesar, chainlink 2 Gilga. Gilga now scales Orthros and Ragnar, and we grab ourselves a gate. Gate's effect, we grab a Gryphon. We're gonna pen out both Gryphon and Copper. We go into our small Caesar. Orthros now pops small Caesar and itself. Caesar now grabs our Swamp. With Necro we go into our first small Genghis. Then we overlay into Machinex so that we can revive our Caesar. We go into our Tell, burn the opponent. With Swamp we're gonna use Tell for our second small Genghis. Tell now flourishes Patent. We go into a big Caesar, then we're gonna trigger Ragnar, so that it revives Gryphon. We go chainlink 1 Gryphon to search, chainlink 2 Orthros to special, and Gryphon grabs us Headhunt. Lastly we go into our Siegfried and set Headhunt. With Gryphon we go into full combo as well. By now you can surely do the Fiendsmith line by heart, right? Because at this point the line is super telegraphed. We start off by specialing our Gryphon to go into our Gilga. Caesar chainlink 1, Gilga chainlink 2. Gilga scales Orthros and Ragnar, and Caesar grabs us Gate. With Gate we add Copper. We're gonna pen out Copper and Gryphon, and Copper will flourish Necro. We go into our small Caesar, and then we're gonna pop Caesar with Orthros. Caesar gets a Swamp. With Necro we go into our first small Genghis. Then we go into our Machinex so that it can revive our Caesar. Then we overlay into Tell. Tell will burn the opponent. With Swamp we're gonna use Tell so that we can go into our second small Genghis. Tell then flourishes Patent. Patent will add us back Orthros. Then we overlay into our Caesar, then we trigger Ragnar. Ragnar now revives Gryphon. Chainlink 1 Gryphon, chainlink 2 Orthros to special, and Gryphon adds Headhunt. Lastly we go into our Siegfried and set Headhunt. Alright, now let's see how our ceiling increased. This time our first big Caesar will stick to the field. And this time we're not going to use him just to extend our combo, because he's going to be an endboard piece instead. We're gonna start off by normal summoning Copper. Copper will flourish us our Necro. Then we're gonna special Gryphon so that we can link off into Gilga. Gilga now scales Orthros and Ragnar. We're gonna pen summon out Copper and Gryphon. Overlay it into small Caesar and pop it with Orthros. Orthros grabs our Swamp. With Necro we go into our first small Genghis. Then we overlay into Machinex so that we can revive Caesar. We overlay into Tell, burn the opponent. Activate Swamp to use our Tell for our second small Genghis. Tell now flourishes Patent. Patent will get us back Orthros. Then we overlay into our second big Caesar to revive our Gryphon with Ragnar. Chainlink 1 Gryphon, chainlink 2 Orthros. Gryphon adds Headhunt. Then we go into our Siegfried and set Headhunt. 4 Solemns, let's go. But this is not the strongest board. This is the strongest board. We're gonna watch this Fiendsmith cinematic one last time. And now we're gonna start with the real combo. We're gonna normal summon Kepler so that we can grab ourselves a gate. Gate's effect grabs us Copper. We're gonna special out Gryphon and go into our Gilga. Gilga effect scales us Orthros and Ragnar. We're gonna pen out Copper and Gryphon. Copper flourishes Necro. We go into our small Caesar, pop Caesar with Orthros. Caesar grabs a Swamp. With Necro we go into our first small Genghis. Overlay into Machinex to reborn our Caesar from the grave. Overlay into our Tell so that we can burn our opponent. Activate Swamp and use Tell's body to go into our second small Genghis. Tell now flourishes Patent and Patent will add us back Orthros. We overlay into our second big Caesar to revive our Gryphon. Gryphon chaining 1, Orthros chaining 2, Gryphon grabs us Headhunt. we go into our Siegfried and set Headhunt. 10 interruptions now, let's go. And 4 of them are Solemns. On to the second version, variant 2, Maximum Fiendsmith. Let's assume you really balled out or you were ahead of the curve and already got a Lacrima, Tract, Desirae and Requiem. In this case, you can think about playing a very heavy Fiendsmith engine. And by adding our trusty Scale Surveyor, which will come out in the Monster Mayhem set, the Maximum variant has a way different approach in its deck idea. The two engines now have two different use cases. First, the DDD engine is now only used for the one-card Kepler combo. This combo, however, is now focused on ending on Machinex and Siegfried. For Wave High King Caesar, we're gonna primarily use the Fiendsmith engine. This means that this deck is based on a mixed two-card combo approach, meaning that the perfect hand always consists of one-card Kepler combo and one Engraver combo. This makes the deck way more hand trap resilient, since it's based on different one-card combos stacked on top of each other, meaning that if one combo gets stopped, the other is still there. And since we use only one card combos, every additional extended that we draw into makes our combo even more resilient to hand traps. Okay, now onto the deck space. We're gonna use 7 main deck slots and 6 extra deck slots. This might come as a shocker to you, but even though the engine is so large, the main deck itself becomes slimmer. Here you can see an example deck core. Since we only used the one-card Kepler combo, we cut out a lot of our engine. This makes our deck way more streamlined. You can decide to cut out Swamp, Headhunt, or some extenders, but I just like to keep it in to have a higher ceiling afterwards. In the extra deck you can see that I don't have a lot of flex spots. That's because I decided to run 2 Gilgameshes and 1 Bright Armor and 1 Genghis. You can cut these out if you want to, but for my personal taste I just like to have a more DDD heavier approach in my extra deck. Okay, onto the card by cards. First off, Lacrima of the Crimson Tears. So why do we even play her? She's the key to bridging our Fiendsmith engine with Closed Moon. That's because she can foolish any Fiendsmith card from the main deck. So when she gets summoned, she can foolish either a Paradise or an Engraver for more extension. And another cool thing is you can special card out from the graveyard on your opponent's turn. The only thing you have to do is to shuffle back one of your Light Fiend Link monsters. And because she's summoned again, you can go ahead and foolish another Fiendsmith card from the main deck. Pretty cool, right? People usually trigger this effect on end phase to play around tactics. Moving on to Desirae. Desirae is a multi-spot negate. The amount of cards you can negate with Desirae depends on the link arrows you have on the equipped monsters on Desirae. Usually, Desirae is equipped with a sequence, or Requiem, or both, which makes him untargetable as well because of sequence. However, if you do go into the Desirae line, you will make yourself vulnerable to Nip. So just keep that in mind. On a side note, Desirae has a pretty cool graveyard effect as well. When this guy hits the graveyard, it kind of functions like a Druid's Worm. By shuffling back one of your Light Fiends, you can target one of your opponent's cards and send it to the graveyard, just like that. Speaking of sending it to the grave, Fiendsmith in Paradise is just that. On field, it has a pretty cool effect. You can target one level 7 or higher Light Fiend monster, and when you do that, you can send any other card on the field to the graveyard, which are not that monster, basically making Desirae a Zeus. However, we play it for its graveyard effect. By banishing Fiendsmith in Paradise in grave, you can foolish one of your Fiendsmith monsters from your deck or extra deck. So you could foolish Desirae to get its graveyard effect. This piece makes our end board layered. Now to the other two links. You guys already know Requiem, he's the specialer. We're gonna use Sequence to get access to Desirae, because Sequence is the fuser, and we're gonna use Agnum Day for the crackback, because this guy increases the attack points of one of our equipped monsters by the total amount of link arrows equipped to that monster. And now lastly, the anti-Dark Ruler package. Instead of Fiendsmith in Paradise, you can play Fiendsmith Kyrie. While on field, it makes your Fiendsmith monsters towers. In the graveyard, it can be used to fuse. Either way, both interactions allow us to respond to Dark Ruler. This, however, requires us to commit to an additional extra deck slot, so that we have a fuse target with Fiendsmith Rex Trement. Speaking of which, Rex Trement is a very good tool to recur our resources. On its fusion summon, it can foolish any Light Fiend monster from extra deck or main deck, just by discarding one card. Additionally, if it hits the graveyard, we can get back one Fiendsmith card from banishment or graveyard again. But you can cut this package out if you don't want to. Speaking of cuts, some additional extra deck cuts that you can think about are this time our 2 small Genghis. Since we primarily rely on the Fiendsmith engine to make our Wave High King Caesar, you can argue that you don't need the second copy of Flame King Genghis, since its reborn effect is hard once per turn either way. Moving on to the main Fiendsmith lines. In the second variant, we're gonna add Tract instead of Sanct, and then we're gonna activate Tract so that we can add ourselves our Fabled Lurry. Tract then forces us to discard a card. In our case, it's obviously the Lurry. Because Luri got discarded, Luri will specials itself from the grave. We're gonna link it off into Requiem. Requiem will then tag out to Lacrima from the deck. Lacrima will then Foolish Paradise, and then we're gonna equip Lacrima with Requiem from the grave. And then we're gonna contact fuse both into Necro equipped Princess. The discarded Engraver will then special itself from the grave by shuffling back the Luri, and then we're gonna overlay into our Big Caesar. Now here comes the cool part about this variant. In this variant, you can pivot between Big Caesar and Desirae seamlessly. Let's assume instead of Big Caesar, you want to end on Desirae. In this case, the line is pretty much the same up until the point where Lacrima Foolishes Paradise. Here, instead of going into Necro equip, you can special out Engraver right away from the grave by shuffling back our Luri. Then we go into our sequence to then activate our sequence to fuse into Desirae by shuffling back our Lacrima, Engraver and Requiem. And lastly, we're gonna just equip our sequence to Desirae. And with that, you have an untargetable Omni card on field negate, with usually up to 2 cards. Now to the 1 card Siegfried package. As I've said, this variant is only really viable with our new support. And that's because of Scale. Why, you might ask? Well, let's assume we play DD Arc. But this card is usually super bad, but because Scale is a level 2, we can pan summon him out. And with that, we can do a lot of funny things. For example, this 1 card Siegfried combo. The only thing that you need is a Kepler. You're gonna start off by normal summoning Kepler. Kepler gets Gate. Gate gets Scale. Scale specials itself. We're gonna link them off into Gilga. Gilga activates and now scales Arc and Orthros. We're gonna pan summon out Scale and level him to 4. And here comes the cool part. We're gonna pop both Orthros and Arc, and now Arc activates itself on the pop. Arc's effect allows us to special a DD monster from the face-up extra deck, and the only one we have there is Orthros. So Orthros gets specialed out. With Scale on the field already, we can go into Siegfried. And this bare bones line is basically the only line we're using for our DDD engine. Now, on to the combos. Speaking of the Siegfried package, let me show you. Start by normal summoning Kepler, getting us the Gate. Gate now gets us Scale. We're gonna special out Scale, not trigger his level 4 effect, and go into Gilga. Gilga now scales Arc and Orthros. We're gonna pen summon out Scale, and now we're gonna level him to 4. Then we're gonna pop both Scales with Orthros. Arc will trigger to special out Orthros. Now we go into our Siegfried and then to our Machinex. This is just out of 1 Kepler, by the way. But let's say you want Caesar instead. In this case, you're gonna use our DD engine to pivot into the Fiendsmith engine. With Gates, we're gonna grab us a Scale. Scale special itself, and now we go into Closed Moon. Now we're gonna link off into Requiem. Requiem effect, special out Lacrima. Lacrima effect, Foolish Engraver. Engraver effect, shuffle back Closed Moon. Requiem effect, equip to Lacrima, and then contact fuse into Necro equip. Then overlay into Big Caesar. Now let's say you want to end on Desirae instead. That's no problem too. We're gonna start off again by normal summoning Kepler. Gate effect to Scale. We're gonna special out Scale and go into our Closed Moon. With Moon we go into our Requiem. Requiem will special out Lacrima. Lacrima will Foolish Engraver. Engraver specials itself by shuffling back Closed Moon. We're gonna link them both into Sequence. Sequence effect, shuffle them all back to get into Desirae. Trigger Sequence to equip onto Desirae. And as you can see, out of Kepler, you have a lot of pivoting potential. We're gonna achieve our standard board with Kepler and Engraver. We're gonna start off by adding us Tract. Tract will get us our Luri. Luri will be pitched to special itself. With that, we go into our Requiem. Requiem will special Lacrima. Lacrima will then Foolish Paradise for a nice layered interruption. Engraver special itself by shuffling back Luri. We equip Requiem onto Lacrima and contact fuse into Necro equip and overlay into Caesar. Then we go into our Siegfried 1 card combo with Kepler. Gets us Gate. Gate gets us Scale. We special Scale and link into Gilga. Gilga scales Arc and Orthros. We penned out Scale and level it to 4. Orthros will now pop both Scales. Arc activates and specials out Orthros, and we go into our Siegfried. And lastly, we overlay into Machinex. Let's say you don't need the 2 Solemns, but instead a Spot Omni would be better. In this case, just use the same Fiendsmith line just now, but pivot into the Desirae line instead. Same thing, you want to Foolish Paradise, special our Engraver by shuffling back Luri, but now go into Sequence. Sequence will now shuffle all of them back to go into Desirae, and it will equip itself onto Desirae. Then we're gonna normal summon our Kepler so that we get ourselves a Gate, and with Gate, we're gonna get ourselves a Scale. We're gonna special out Scale and go into our Gilga. Gilga effect scales Arc and Orthros. We're gonna pen summon out Scale. It will go level 4, and then we're gonna pop both Scales with Orthros. Arc triggers and specials out Orthros. we go into our Siegfried and go into our Markinex. Okay, but what if we want target protection? Well, in this case, Kepler Engraver can do that as well. We're gonna do the same Fiendsmith cinematic, but this time we end on Big Caesar instead. So I'm gonna spare you the details because you have seen them a couple of times. Paradise is such an awesome inclusion to our end board. Blade Interruption is something that we desperately needed. Okay, the cinematic is finished. We're gonna normal summon Kepler, Kepler effect grabs us Gate. Gate's effect grabs a Scale. A special Scale go into Gilga. Scale effect, Arc and Orthros. We're gonna pen summon out Scale, Scale level 4. Then we're gonna pop both Scales with Orthros, so that we can special out Orthros with Arc. Now we go into our small Caesar and dump him with our second Gilga, and Caesar will grab a Swamp. Swamp effect, we go into our small Genghis. Now we overlay into a Markinex so that we can reborn our Orthros from the grave. And lastly, we go into our Bride. And of course, instead of Caesar, you can have Desirae instead. Speaking of which, let me show you. As per usual, we're gonna start with the Fiendsmith cinematic. But this time, remember, you don't need to go into Necro Equip. Okay, now same thing as last time. Normal summon Kepler, Kepler effect grabs us Gate. Gate grabs us Scale. We link into Gilga, Gilga now scales Arc and Orthros. We're gonna pen summon out Scale, Scale is now level 4. Afterwards we're gonna pop both Scales with Orthros, so that we can special him out again with Arc. Now we go into Caesar so that we can dump him. Caesar now grabs our Swamp King again. With Swamp we go into our small Genghis. Then we overlay into Markinex so that we can revive our Orthros again. And lastly, we synchro into Bride. Now that's called flexibility. But let's say you like to have Headhunt. Well, in that case, Kepler and Scale will get you there. We're gonna start off by normal summoning Kepler. Kepler grabs us Gate. Gate now grabs us Gryphon. Then we're gonna special out Gryphon. And we're gonna special out Scale and level him to 4. Now we overlay into Caesar. And afterwards, we're gonna link into Gilga. Caesar will now grab our Swamp. We're gonna now activate Swamp to fuse into small Genghis. Then we're gonna pop both Scales with Orthros so that we can special him out with Arc. Small Genghis will now revive Gryphon. And Gryphon will get us Headhunt. Lastly, we synchro into Siegfried and then we overlay into Markinex. Make sure to set Headhunt and then Gilga can now float into Bride as well. Okay, but what if we get Impermed? Let me show you. We're gonna normal summon Kepler again, Kepler will grab us Gate. Gate activates, will grab us Gryphon. We're gonna special out Scale, Scale will be level 4. Then we're gonna special out Gryphon. We're gonna overlay into Caesar and then link into Gilga. Chilling 1 Caesar, chilling 2 Gilga, and Gilga gets Impermed. With Caesar we're gonna grab Swamp. Then we're gonna activate Swamp so that we can go into our small Genghis. We overlay Markinex so that we can revive Gryphon. Gryphon now grabs us Headhunt. And we're gonna use Gryphon and small Genghis to go into Moon and then go to Requiem and start our Fiendsmith combo. Lacrima will now Foolish Engraver. Engraver shuffles back Moon to special itself. With Requiem we go into Necro Equip. We overlay into Big Caesar and set our Headhunt. Yeah, that's right, Imperm on Gilga doesn't matter anymore. Alternatively, you can do the same combo where you get Impermed and end on Desirae instead of Caesar. So the gist of this protected combo is to first go into small Caesar and then link off into Gilga. Same as before, we go chilling 1 Caesar, chilling 2 Gilga. Caesar gets a Swamp. With Swamp we go into our small Genghis. Overlay into Markinex so that we can revive our Gryphon. Gryphon gets us Headhunt. And with the spare bodies we go into our Fiendsmith engine. But this time we don't need to go into Necro Equip because we just want to have Desirae. So for that, sequence fuses and equips itself on Desirae. Don't forget to set Headhunt, and that's it. Now let's look at the ceiling. This 3-card combo will get us to our typical end board. This time we want to end on Caesar, that means that we have to go the Necro Equip line. Now we go ahead and normal summon Kepler. Kepler effect will grab us Gate. Gate will grab us Gryphon. We're gonna special out Scale and Scale will turn level 4 and we're gonna special out Gryphon as well. We overlay both into Caesar and then we're gonna link off into Gilga. Chaining 1 Caesar, chaining 2 Gilga. Gilga will scale us Arc and Orthros, and Caesar grabs us Swarm. With Swarm we go into Small Genghis. Now we're gonna pop both scales with Orthros, and because of Arc we're gonna special out Orthros. That will trigger Genghis to revive Gryphon. Gryphon will grab us Headhunt, we synchro into Siegfried and overlay into Machinex. And lastly we set Headhunt. And as you have seen multiple times by now, the same line can be done to add on Desirae. Keep in mind, this time you don't need to waste your Necro equip. You know by now, we're gonna normal summon Kepler, Kepler will get us Gate. Gate will get us Gryphon. We're gonna special out Scale, Scale will turn level 4, and we special out Gryphon, so that we can overlay both into Caesar. Now we're gonna link into Gilga, and we're gonna chain link 1 Caesar, chain link 2 Gilga. With Swamp in hand, we're gonna use Swarm so that we can go into our Small Genghis. We're gonna pop both Scales again with Orthros, so that we can special him out with Arc. Then we're gonna revive our Gryphon from the grave with Genghis. Gryphon will get us Headhunt. Then we synchro into Siegfried and overlay into Machinex again and set Headhunt. The ceiling might be low, but we are way more flexible as you have noticed. Speaking of which, let's make it more resilient. Let me show you the Dark Ruler package. As usual, we're gonna start our Fiendsmith cinematic again. Keep in mind that you can always play around Dark Ruler when you have Fiendsmith Engraver. And you play this package of course. But this time we're gonna Foolish Curry. And keep in mind that you can do this with any other Desirae combo that I've shown you previously. Lastly, we're gonna end on Desirae. And we're gonna equip Sequence on Desirae. Now, let's assume our opponent Dark Rulers us. We go chaining 1 Curie, chaining 2 Desirae. We go into Rex, and then we're gonna set up our recursion piece with Lacrima. And that's how you play around Dark Ruler. So awesome to have an in-engine out. Next, here are some interesting tech cards that you can consider. The first one is obviously Chaos Angel. Because of the Fiendsmith engine, it's super easy to get level 6 Light Fiends on the field. Since both variants primarily consist of level 4 Dark Fiends, a monster and battle protected Chaos Angel is super easy to go into. And the second one is Gruesome Grave Squirmer. Since both variants use Nightmare Throne as their consistency piece, you can always decide to pop instead of add something via Nightmare Throne, and it will act like a Swirl Slime special from the hand, or a Reborn from the Grave, for our 0 attack and defense fiends, just by banishing itself from the grave. On to the Deckrating. The minimum Fiendsmith variant slightly improved our consistency and slightly improved our deck ceiling, since in this variant the engine is only used supplementary, since the main DDD game plan stays the same. The maximum Fiendsmith version just shown now, however, has reduced our deck complexity by a lot, since it stripped down the DDD engine into a 1-card Kepler combo, whilst relying on the Fiendsmith engine for the endboard way more. This made our deck way more consistent and applicable to competitive play, but we sadly lost some of our offensive capabilities due to our limited exodeck space and very slim DDD main deck engine. So there are sadly no Chain Reborns on the crackback for this variant, at least in the typical deck lists. Lastly, I want to give a shout out to the DD Discord server. The server has a lot of active members, and some of them have crazy and excellent ideas, especially about deck building and comboing with our deck. So special thanks to them, because without them I couldn't have shown you these two variants. And if you want to be part of that community, make sure to check the link in the description. And with all that being said, this has been DDDreamer. See you next time.